Welcome to The Breakdown with Birkenoff. I am your host, Wyatt Birkenoff. In today's video, we're going to give a post-game analysis of the last presidential debate between President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. So before we get into some takeaways from articles, I was just going to give my quick perspective of how I thought the debate went, and then we'll kind of get into some takeaways, and at the end, I'll explain who I think won the debate. So my general takeaways were the muted mics were something that a lot of people had a hot topic when discussing of how that would determine the debate. And many people, even including myself in my pregame analysis, were thinking that President Trump wasn't necessarily going to follow those rules put by the debate commission or muted mic, because we do know that Trump is a very bullish man, and many figured that he would just kind of shout out to Joe Biden, even if not everyone was able to hear it through the mic, such as viewers on the television or in streaming platforms, but just to kind of mess up Joe Biden, who was physically there with them in person, obviously. So that was just one general takeaway. And then what I thought from that muted mic standpoint and what people thought from it, President Trump was almost the complete opposite. This debate was very civil, very responsible. Everyone followed their times. In general, they were both given even times. There wasn't too many bias towards Joe Biden or bias towards Donald Trump as far as time was given. In some instances, they gave a little bit extra time to President Trump within his 2-minute explanation. So President Trump came off extremely civil in this debate conversation. And a lot of people, especially conservatives, were saying, Trump, stop interrupting. You need to let Biden speak. He's going to mess up. He's going to say something that is wrong. He's going to say something that doesn't make sense because he has mental health problems, blah, blah, blah. You know, you hear this constantly from conservative platforms, especially after the first debate. And I was thinking that if Trump did stay civil, did stay moderate, and didn't go out fully attacking everything, but attacked certain components, more like a strategic analysis or a strategic plan, that President Trump could very well have win the debate. And for the most part, I think that he did have the advantage in the debate. That being said, I don't think Joe Biden had very many miscues. He did say a couple things that were either rather funny or were just outright wrong, and we're going to get to a couple of those a little bit later. But the main thing that stood out within the whole debate on what Joe Biden said, well, I'll have two examples, one funny and one actual policy-wise. Because a lot of people, when they watch these debates, they're looking at the candidate for who the person is or who they might represent. So in other words, a lot of people in America, the average Joe, don't necessarily follow politics, read articles, listen to news that often. They rather just go about their daily lives and avoid it for the most matter, because news is very negative and can get very draining. A lot of people fall in that category. So when the average Joe, decides to watch the debate for who he's going to vote for this election, he is a lot of times looking at who the candidate appears to be. Who's more civil? Who's more responsible? Who's more just or in other actions like that? And I do think that both candidates were that. And Joe Biden, for the most part, did fit that category like he did during the first debate. Now, going to what Joe Biden said and what I briefly mentioned were two things. One funny thing and one policy thing. One of the policy things that stood outright was the fact of him saying that he didn't say he would ban fracking. So for the most part, restart, he was basically stating that he didn't think that they needed to ban fracking, and he was basically stating the policy that fracking didn't need to be banned. But that being said, we're going to play a clip a little bit later where Joe Biden has constantly changed his position on fracking. And it's a very classic politician thing to do, where you speak out one side of your mouth and then you speak out the other side of your mouth and you just go from that. And that was a classic example for Joe Biden, and I'll play the clip physically later. But the next big thing, what was more funny, and there was a couple examples with Joe Biden more than Donald Trump, because Donald Trump tried to stay more civil, tried to stay more on task, and Joe Biden just occasionally has these minor slips that don't necessarily mean that much, but are just kind of different. kind of funny almost, and it doesn't. I don't even think it necessarily takes away much from Joe Biden, unless if you're somebody that really thinks that Joe Biden already has a mental health problem, but then you already have your opinion set. So if you're just the average person and you see it, you may not necessarily come taking away that much from it. But one of the classic things that I took when watching the debate was when Joe Biden was giving an example of terrorist groups or white supremacy type of groups, and he mentioned the poor boys. So anyone that follows any sort of politics knows that the poor boys is not the Proud Boys. The Proud Boys is what he was referring to, but he said the poor boys. And that was just something that anybody who follows politics in general, or even kind of vaguely, would kind of know about the Proud Boys. And so it was just funny that Joe Biden said the poor boys when referring to the Proud Boys. So enough of me talking. Let's get into some of the takeaways based off of the articles, and I'll give more of my perspectives, and then we'll get into the clips of Joe Biden with fracking and some general highlights from the debate that you can hear yourself. So this is from NPR, and it says their first point was there was a real debate. And we've kind of already talked about that. But they do mention Kristen Welker. A lot of people were theorizing that the moderator, Kristen Welker, was going to lean more towards Joe Biden because of her personal media experience. Because a lot of people in media, even Fox News, tend to have a slight leaning towards left candidates, or more especially Joe Biden, because Joe Biden kind of seems more civil, more responsible. He's much more of the media agenda that they're trying to push through. So a lot of people thought her experience and what she's had was going to make her lean much more favorably towards Joe Biden. And I do think that there was some favorability, but it definitely wasn't enough to be outright noticeable by anybody in the general public or have that much of a meaning for the debate. So in other words, if you're really watching for it, you can always find instances where the person was being favorable towards one of the candidates, because you're looking for it so much that you see it. So I don't think that she really was doing any of those perspectives, because again, you really have to look for it to be seen. So I do think that Kristen Welker did a very good job at moderating the questions and keeping a very steady flow, including allowing extra set time on certain topics. A second is the coronavirus is still a driving force in the election, and they mentioned an article that Biden said as well as Trump, and I'll read those two quotes from inside this article. It states, anyone who is responsible for that many deaths should not remain as president of the United States of America, Biden said. Trump repeatedly claimed that his approach saved millions of lives, that we are rounding the turn, after testing positive himself following the last debate. The president acknowledged he had personal experience with the disease, but argued it was manageable, saying, I had it and I got better. He repeated this claim that a vaccine was weeks away, but when pressed admitted it's not a guarantee. Trump said it has a good chance by the end of the year to be approved, and that he had a plan lined up for the military to help distribute millions of doses. So obviously coronavirus was going to be a major topic within the debate, because it still is a pressing concern, especially towards the average American, especially Americans with health concerns, but even Americans who are looking to get back into work through states that have either strict regulations or just haven't opened up yet. So that was a very interesting thing. And that kind of leads to their third point here that they have, and that is healthcare debate pitted Biden care versus ending Obamacare. So this isn't exactly their point on what they were saying here, but it reminds me of another takeaway I had during the debate. And that was Joe Biden seemed very much to attack Biden seemed very much able to attack Obama in the debate. And what I mean by that is Joe Biden kind of came out against Obama, the former president, obviously, multiple times throughout the debate. And it was rather odd, because they do appear to have a generally good relationship, despite Obama not endorsing Joe Biden till very late in the actual candidacy stage. I believe it was just before Pete Buttigieg and Klobuchar and those others decided to drop out of the race. But that timing could be slightly off. But anyway, lack for better words, especially with him wanting to introduce Biden care, and he said a line against Obamacare that it didn't make much sense. And he didn't say it like that, but he was basically saying that he would remove that in his version of the care program that he is calling Obamacare. And even the fact of just calling it Obamacare could necessarily be seen as a ripoff to Obamacare, which again was what they both came up with, or at least what Obama mainly came up with using his name. But that may be reading too much into that issue of the debate, so we'll move on from that. The fourth was Trump attacked Biden as a typical politician engaged in corruption. So that was a major topic throughout the debate, and I think a lot of people who follow news knew that this was going to be a topic. Many people were wondering how Joe Biden was going to confront Hunter Biden with Joe Biden and their families, because Trump doesn't have a perfect family, but neither does Joe Biden. And the more information that comes out through the New York Post and New York Times, well, not so much New York Times, but the more that comes out in media companies against Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and his dealings with Burisma and others, and in Russia, and his whole family getting support. I think it was his wife who got money from Russia, or I think it was Russia. It may have been Ukraine. I don't remember exactly now, but you get what I'm saying. A lot of his family has gotten money that isn't necessarily fully ethical to do, if not outright wrong, and if not illegal to do. So Trump was very much going against that. And in the debate, he did bring up Hunter Biden and did bring up his family's corruption. But Joe Biden, instead of really answering the question, just attacked his family and his businesses, as well as him not turning in his tax returns, as Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have done. So the whole thing was a huge topic that President Trump kept kind of egging Joe Biden to do, but Joe Biden didn't really necessarily say anything that gave a full answer, so we don't really have a question to what Joe Biden thinks of it so far. The fifth one, the debate may not matter, and that is a huge topic that a lot of people are thinking about. And this debate happens 11 days, if I am doing my math right. November 3rd is election day, obviously, and that is the last day that votes are physically going to be able to count, unless there's some modified rule for mail-in ballots, depending on how all that goes. I don't even think many people know exactly how the mail-in ballots are working. It's a process that has happened before, but not at this scale. So many things have changed based off of just the mail-in ballots. But besides that, November 3rd is the last day to vote. So it is only, I believe, 11 days from when I'm recording this video to where people are going to come in and cast their vote. And it is, a lot of people have already either early voted or sent in their mail-in ballots. And the reason I bring up mail-in ballots, besides the general rules of the mail-in ballots, is the fact that many people have already sent their mail-in ballots because that was an option so widely available to use in this year's election due to coronavirus. So a lot of people have already casted their vote, including here where they say 40 million people have already voted. Now, we are seeing high turnout numbers more than usual, and that could be because of the mail-in ballots. But regardless of those reasons in particular, we are seeing higher numbers of voters, but at the same time, a lot of people have already casted their vote. So the actual debate may not have that much of a purpose or that much of a meaning for the average Joe. This next article is by CNN, and it has many similar points, so we'll kind of speed run through this one, but I just thought I was going to quickly mention this main point here with the CNN article. It states Trump's wishful thinking. Trump's very first answer was not meant to state how he would lead during the next stage of the coronavirus. Relied instead on looking backwards and wishful thinking about a vaccine. And like many of his answers over the rest of the evening, Trump's central argument seemed to be things that could be a lot worse. Thought it was delivered in a new, less aggressive style. Trump's answer accounted to the same dismissal of the pandemic he's been offering for months. One of the voters have largely rejected. It will go away, and as I say, we are rounding the turn. We are rounding the corner. It's going away, he said, with little regard to the surge across the county. And then it's relating to that point, and one of the more viral clips that has come out of the debate stage for Joe Biden was him claiming that it's going to be a dark winter when referring to coronavirus, as he stays here. Anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as president of the United States, Biden said. I don't look at this way he does. Blue states and red states, they are all United States, Biden said. He pointed out spikes have occurred in recent weeks in Republican-leaning states. They are all Americans, he said, and that's referring to how he doesn't see party limits within America are party states. I don't know if party states make sense, but I think you get what I'm saying. And then it says Trump dust off his 2016 playbook. With nearly 50 million votes already cast and time about to reverse his polling futures, Trump resorted to the tactics that helped him win 4 years ago. He tried to cast Biden as a typical politician, just like Hillary Clinton. He repeatedly pointed out that Biden was elected in office for 47 years, blaming Biden for failing to solve problems like systemic racism. Joe, I ran because of you. I ran because of Barack Obama, because you did a poor job. If I thought you did a good job, I would have never run. And this was a huge moment for President Trump within this debate stage, because it was something that Joe Biden had the ability to respond to because it was an attack, and Joe Biden did have a response, but he did not really respond the way a lot of people would thought, because a lot of people would say, well, I ran against you this time because you did a bad job. I mean, that was a very easy attack response, and I heard that also from actual Justice Warrior and from some of the guys at the Freedom Scoop Network. But essentially, they were all kind of saying that was a very easy way for Joe Biden to get out of that attack and kind of come out as the victor, because it was more of a personal attack of President Trump. But Joe Biden didn't do that and rather had a lackluster response. So it made Trump come out as really the clear winner, because there are several moments throughout the debate stage where President Trump was basically stating that President Trump was basically stating that Joe Biden was just a classic politician, and that's why you shouldn't vote for him, and that did have a big meaning. Now we'll listen to a few highlights of the debate, and then we'll get into the Biden fracking clip and who I think won this election, who I think won this debate.
They went through everything I had, including my tax returns, and they found absolutely no collusion and nothing wrong. 48 million. I guarantee you, if I spent 1 million on you, Joe, I could find plenty wrong, because the kind of things that you've done and the kind of monies that your family has taken. I mean, your brother made money in Iraq, millions of dollars. Your other brother made a fortune, and it's all through you, Joe. And they say you get some of it, and you do live very well. You have houses all over the place. You live very well.
I have not taken a penny from any foreign source ever in my life. We learned that this president paid 50 times the tax in China, has a secret bank account with China, does business in China, and in fact is talking about me taking money. You have not released a single solitary year of your tax return. What are you hiding? Why are you unwilling?
Again, that was a major comment throughout the debate stage, with Joe Biden attacking the tax returns, as we briefly have talked about. And depending where you align politically, that's either a big deal or not a big deal. I've seen several people kind of come out and say that they don't really think that tax returns are that much of a big deal, because President Trump just knows how to game the system, and the reason he's able to game the system is because of laws and regulations that Obama and Trump and even presidents before them in Congresses and Houses and all that, however the government system works. That's the reason he's able to do it, because they put it in place for him to do so. The government did. So Trump is just being smart and using regulations. I heard that strategy, but I've also heard the other component, or the other strategy, that basically states the reason Trump isn't going to release his tax returns is because he is hiding something, and tax returns are a big deal, and that's why every president before him has released their tax returns. And yeah, that's pretty much the other perspective. Now this next thing is the classic clip of Biden and will he or will he not ban fracking.
I am not banning fracking. Let me say that again. I am not banning fracking, no matter how many times Donald Trump lies about me.
Like, what about, say, stopping fracking and stopping pipe?
I am not banning fracking, no matter how many times Donald Trump lies about me.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking.
I am not banning fracking, no matter how many times Donald Trump lies about me. No more, no new fracking, no matter how many times Donald Trump lies about me.
We are going to get rid of fossil fuels.
No matter how many times Donald Trump lies about me.
Would there be any place for fossil fuels, including coal and fracking, in a Biden administration?
No, we would work it out. We would make sure it's eliminated.
So there were some classic highlights of Biden saying that he would or would not ban fracking. And as we've already kind of discussed at the beginning, this is a classic politician thing, of speaking out one side of your mouth, and then when you go somewhere else, you speak out a different side of your mouth. Because Pennsylvania is a very large state that Biden wants to win, and Pennsylvania also has a very high oil industry, and a lot of people are employed simply because of fracking, or a lot more people are employed because fracking exists. And the threat that Biden would want to remove fracking altogether or even reduce fracking would put a lot of people's jobs at risk in Pennsylvania and other states. So he doesn't want to lose Pennsylvania, so when he's in Pennsylvania or talking about Pennsylvania, he says that he's not going to ban fracking, but everywhere else he says he is. So obviously that's just a classical politician thing. Now, who do I think is going to win the debate? CNN put out a poll and relied on other pollsters, as you see here, a CNN instant poll, and I'll read what they say here. Overall, 53% of voters who watched the debate said that Biden won the matchup, while 39% said that President Trump did. Viewers once again said that Biden's criticisms of Trump were largely fair. 73% said they were fair, 23% said unfair, and they were split whether Trump's attacks on Biden were fair. 50% said yes, and 49% said no. That's a more positive outcome for Trump in a CNN instant poll after the first presidential debate. Just 28% said that they thought that president had won the debate, and 67% called his criticism of Biden unfair. So obviously you see the two different debate styles and how the polling numbers were able to gain President Trump a little bit more of a win in this debate than compared to last debate. But even in this instance, according to CNN and CNN's poll, Trump still lost the debate. And obviously they're polling people that are very much Joe Biden fans, or at least would be more likely to vote for Joe Biden than compared to Donald Trump, because we all know who CNN is as a news network. And it is something to note. Now, my general thoughts of who I thought won the debate. I do think that this debate was close in quotations in the fact of how each candidate looked, but I do think that President Trump was the clear winner this time. There was a little bit of speculation on the first debate, but I ultimately came out saying that Biden won the first debate, and really the more you look back on it, the more Biden seems like the victor. But the more I look at this debate and the instant reaction, and even looking at it now afterwards, after the day has ended, I still think that President Trump has definitely won this debate. He came out as a strong victor, not only in body language appearance, but also on what he had to say. His points were clear, he didn't interrupt much, and he just seemed to command the stage like he did on the first debate, but command it much more like a politician than an actual bullish figure. Just a few channel announcements before we get out of here. I am about to release a documentary analysis piece that I've been doing and working on. It's very different than my usual video, so I hope you enjoy it, especially if you're a fan of documentaries or what's going on in today's political culture. I'll feel like you probably will like the analysis piece, but I don't know exactly when I am going to release it, but it's either going to be at the end of October or mid-November around Thanksgiving break. But I also recently released a video about the Antifa protest yesterday that you can find on my YouTube channel, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff. And again, just a quick reminder, I am also on Twitch and DLive at The Breakdown with WB. And I hope to see you there, and thank you for watching today's video.